So Nissan apparently has a year to live.
Roman report at the...
Okay, wait, because seriously, this is not a good thing. I don't love Nissan, they're far removed from the company they used to be. And I know, playing to the performance crowd isn't sustainable. It doesn't make financial sense to produce more Silvias or Z32s, and frankly, I don't even know if it makes sense to produce more hard bodies. But there was a time, long, long ago, when the Altima really wasn't a bad car. But now? It's like Nissan is a content creator who started out doing one thing, got popular for doing another thing, and is now stuck doing that second thing forever. Even when it's not as successful as it used to be, because it's the only thing they have that still elicits any sort of response at all. That's why you have your Altimas, your Rogues, these cheap fleet cars that get pumped out like too much whiskey from a groomsman's stomach. And it's arguably why Nissan is facing this historic downturn, as an insider proclaimed that Nissan may have about a year left to live before the goose is fully cooked and everybody just packs up shop. But this is far from the first time that Nissan has been staring down the barrel of financial ruin. And it's definitely not the first time the imminent death of the company has been proclaimed from rooftops so high they'd interfere with Santa's flight plan. So what's different this time? Is Nissan really cooked? Is this truly the end? Well, for the annual RCR Christmas special, we had an amazing car lined up, but a combination of weather and mechanical instability meant that the filming shoot fell through, so you're getting a very special Roman report for Christmas. I hope you like it better than Cole.
Roman report, you can call me St. Nick, 'cause I brought you a gift. It's some guy who's discussing cars.
In a statement to Financial Times just before Thanksgiving, a senior official at Nissan stated, quote, "We have 12 or 14 months to survive. This is going to be tough. And in the end, we need Japan and the US to be generating cash." End quote. It may sound like common sense because obviously an automaker needs to generate cash in order to continue making cars. The auto business isn't a charity after all, even if discontinuing the Juke could technically be considered charitable. But Nissan's situation is more of a waking nightmare than I think the general public even realizes. Okay, so in the first quarter of 2024, analysts were anticipating an increase in profits over 2023. But what happened? Nissan reportedly lost 99% of its total profits. You know, it's like Nissan had the American experience of having bills consume your paycheck the minute you get it. In a way, it's the experience of anybody who ever got saddled with a subprime loan on a Nissan Altima. Oh, how do you like that, Nissan? You price hike and now you want my business? How about you kiss my fart garage? Well, okay, it's not as simple as all that, as the profit loss is speculated to have actually been the result of discounts in the US market, so that every sale Nissan did make brought in less money. Either way, the company was only up by $6.5 million at the end of the quarter, which may sound like a lot, but profits for the same period in 2023 were over $835 million. So why is this happening? Well, the obvious reason is that people aren't buying Nissans in the same volume that they used to. Not even historically strong performers like the Sentra, the Altima, and the Rogue are doing the business that they used to. And the Leaf can't continue to coast on its reputation as the world's first mass-produced EV, and one of its best-selling throughout the early to mid-2010s, because being a pioneer doesn't guarantee long-term success. But what's funny is that for all of the ragging me and Brian have done on Nissan in the past couple years, although to be fair, I did mount a fairly rigorous defense of the Rogue, the reality is that Nissan's decline might not even be related to the quality of their cars or the lack thereof. So long story short, French automaker Renault essentially saved Nissan in 1999, as the automaker was close to declaring bankruptcy. Under the stewardship of Carlos Ghosn, the company returned to profitability, at least until Ghosn was arrested in 2018 for financial misconduct over allegations of having underreported his income to the Japanese government and misappropriating funds. Because I'd imagine white-collar crime is the equivalent of a kid finding a lost puppy. Oh, hey, I have all this money. Can I keep it? Why can't I keep it? Maybe you should let me keep it, and I won't tell Mom what I saw you and Aunt Claire doing in the laundry room on Black Friday. Naturally, instead of facing the charges in court, Ghosn opted to make like Christian and Bale, ducking out on house arrest by hiding in a box, word to Solid Snake, and getting smuggled out on a private jet to Lebanon, a country which has no extradition treaty with Japan. Now, naturally, this was a terrible look for the Renault-Nissan alliance that affected their bottom line, although Nissan was still able to continue getting good financial mileage out of the Altima, the Sentra, and the Rogue. All these cars that you're continuously told no one likes, yet continue to see populating the road, coming back, and in greater numbers, like Tuscan Raiders. But okay, it was a bad look for the Renault-Nissan alliance. So what? Plenty of corporate executives come under scrutiny and their product is never made to answer for it, as evidenced by the sheer number of times people have tried to cancel Jeff Bezos without bothering to cancel their Prime membership first. But Carlos Ghosn is kind of an exception because the absurd nature of his story makes it so that this didn't just go away. Like, this is a dude who had holes drilled into a box so he could breathe while he stowed away on a private flight. This is literally that episode of The Simpsons where Bart and his friends get stuck in Hong Kong and Homer has to order a part for the power plant to smuggle them all back home in a giant crate. I mean, it's that. So, of course, Ghosn's story was going to stick in the public consciousness for longer than the news cycle usually allows. And as a result, Nissan's share price dropped 60% in the 5 years that followed the arrest, equating to literal billions in lost value. Billions! Sales also began their gradual drop off of Springfield Gorge, going from 1.5 million units in the US in 2018 to 729,349 units by 2022. A decline mirrored in Europe and China. And worse for the alliance, this affected Renault too, as they finally fell to number 2 in their home country of France. So when Renault began to downsize their stake in Nissan from 43% to around 35% this year, could you blame them? Not really. Nor could you blame Nissan for wanting to replace that 8% with fresh investors. In fact, Financial Times reports that one of those investors could potentially be Honda, as Nissan is already in talks to develop an EV with them, and a source at Renault told the publication that they'd be open to selling some of their stake to Honda. On the other hand, a different source at Nissan told Financial Times that Honda buying a stake would be more of a, quote, last resort. Even Carlos Ghosn doesn't think it would work between Nissan and Honda unless it was a disguised takeover with Honda in the driver's seat, because apparently Carlos Ghosn is out here giving interviews while on the lam. Alright, we have breaking news from literally 7 minutes ago. I just woke up. Oh, first thing, and I found out that the video that I was done with earlier than any other video. Now I have to go back in and edit 2 days before it premieres because of breaking news. But in this case, it's been announced that Honda and Nissan are formally entering merger discussions over the next 6 months. Mitsubishi will be involved. This is per CNN. I saw that it includes a reduction in position for Renault. I don't know if they're significantly reducing their contribution or if they're getting out altogether. I guess that's what these next 6 months are to find out. Maybe. I don't know. But If so, it would make them the world's third largest automaker. I think it would put them behind GM and Toyota. Uh, but generally speaking, this would be a huge boon to the company and save them from potential bankruptcy in 2026 and allow them to potentially find a new avenue forward for electric vehicle electrification. Sorry, I don't have words yet. But I'm going to continue with the video as though these merger talks haven't formally begun yet. Hopefully you're enjoying the video, and I hope you're having a happy holiday. But either way, it does seem like Nissan is actually trying here. They're at least paying lip service to the notion that they're not just redoing the seating arrangement for a wedding that's about to get called off. They're actually trying to put something together rather than just selling the whole company off for peanuts and taking early retirement. Ew. Well, I guess it's better to leave of your own accord, no pun intended, than get fired, because, you see, we're not even 2 months removed from Nissan laying off nearly 7% of its worldwide workforce, some 9,000 employees. And part of the cause for these layoffs, one would assume, is the reported 20% cut in production volume. Because why employ people to build cars when you're making fewer and selling even less? And really, the canary in the coal mine should have been an August report by Automotive News, which found that nearly 40% of all US Nissan dealerships are losing money. It should probably go without saying that without your dealer network, your reach is going to be capped like a branchless tree. Doubly so if the dealers are disgruntled, or even appropriately gruntled, as evidenced by the feud between Jaguar and their dealers. Cheap plug. But another red flag to add to this Olympic parade of nations was the fact that one of the dealers interviewed for the Automotive News article would only speak on condition of anonymity due to fear of reprisals for cooperating on the story. And while you might think it's naive of a dealer to think an automaker would retaliate against them for negative press, it's not unreasonable to worry that Nissan might give the axe to your dealership if they find you talking out of turn, since Nissan has over 1,000 dealerships in the United States alone, and given their precarious financial status, they could probably stand to cut that figure down by a bit. Hell, Toyota has over 1,500, and while I don't know that things are necessarily sunshine and rainbows over there, at least they're not falling down a continuous MC Escher staircase of bad decisions and worse vehicles, all buttressed on either side by dealers who are about as happy as a child whose parent is making them raise their younger sibling. As the dealer in the Automotive News article stated, quote, "In many markets, Nissan dealers are, at best, selling half the volume that competing Honda, Toyota, and Subaru and Hyundai stores are selling. If you're not selling enough new cars, you're not generating enough trade-ins, which feed profit centers such as finance, service, and parts." End quote. This aligns with another Automotive News report which found that Nissan was straight up offering cash money to dealers as incentive to take on inventory in March of this year. Allegedly, they were going as high as $2,000 to sell a bunch of 2023 Nissan Rogues, and I'm hoping it was $2,000 per Rogue and not just some flat fee that would hardly cover the cost of a blown head gasket. Citing statements by CEO Makoto Uchida, the article notes, quote, "Nissan cleared stocks of the 2023 Rogue as the company rolled out the freshened 2024 model of the popular nameplate. The model changeover," Uchida said, "was further undermined by a sudden softening of overall US market demand that required more spiffs. Nissan's spending over the quarter came mostly in the form of consumer loan assistance instead of cash on the hood, in an effort to buoy resale values," Uchida said. "The most important factor here is US inventories," he said. End quote. The need for more SPIFs, or sales performance incentive funds, leaves an implication that's simultaneously hopeful and delusional. That sales reps could be selling more Nissans, but they just aren't feeling incentivized to do so because there aren't enough rewards. But to quote Don Draper, "That's what the money is for! What kind of thank you are you waiting on?" If continuing to have a job isn't incentive enough to do something, then I don't know what exactly is supposed to be motivating this sales force. I get that you can lead a horse to water, but why do you have to pay to keep them hydrated? Isn't bringing them to the reservoir enough? I know nothing about horses. Go check out my Christmas special from like 5 years ago where I reviewed a horse. Rest in peace, Belle. Sweet girl. You were the goodest of girls. I understand that SPIFs are factored into a company's budget, but Nissan really doesn't have a bunch of fun bucks for sending sales associates on a cruise unless that cruise is made by Chevrolet. And it's not just because of the lower profits, but also stuff like increased ad spend. Seriously, if you look back to 2023, Nissan was purported to have spent over 321 billion yen in global advertising, which comes out to around 2.1 billion star-spangled smackers. Nissan basically blitzed social media, digital media, all of the media, with ploys like celebrity endorsements that people aren't really receptive towards, either because it's the wrong car or because it's the wrong celebrity. In the case of the Brie Larson commercial for the Nissan Sentra, it might have been both. Obviously, I can't show you the commercial, but I really don't get what the problem was with this ad, if I'm being honest. Nor am I all that sure why Nissan felt they had to take the video down, but as the ad goes, a woman gets passed over for a promotion at work by her male boss, and Brie Larson comes blazing into frame in a Nissan Sentra to give the woman a ride, show off the features, and psych her up with a pep talk about how if this Sentra doesn't compromise, neither should she. And that's it. That's literally all, unless it was part of a series of ads and I only saw the one. But at worst, it's just corporatized feminism without any of the punch or bite of the real thing. At best, the ad is just corny, as a million ads have been since time immemorial and will continue to be until the heat death of the universe. Or until the point in time where we all get chips implanted in our brain that just blast signals to us that tell us to buy things directly. But social media had a field day, so the video got taken down. And I don't know if it's because it was a bad ad or people simply dislike Brie Larson, who's apparently the new Anne Hathaway when it comes to Oscar-winning actresses. People just don't seem to like for reasons they can never really articulate beyond, she seems fake. Why am I caping so hard for Brie Larson? It's not even like I like her that much. It's just... I feel like it's just the principle of it, you know? Anyway, I don't know. Just don't ask me things. It's Christmas. With regards to advertising, Nissan brought in a new head of marketing, a man by the name of Vinay Shahani, who told Automotive News in October that Nissan wants to get away from celebrity-focused advertising, instead making the car the star of the show. Great idea. However, he also revealed that the company wants to highlight its 6 under 30K campaign featuring the 2025 versions of the Versa, the Sentra, the Altima, the Leaf, and the Rogue. The idea seems to be that Nissan will be the place you go for affordability, since Shahani revealed that third-party data showed that the market for new vehicles under $30,000 has decreased by 70% in the last 5 years. Basically, a new car is less affordable than ever, and Nissan wants to fix that. Of course, some would argue that the catch is that you're saddled with a Nissan, but I can at least appreciate what they're trying to do here because sometimes you need to embrace an economy car identity in order to make the big bucks, you know? And making cars affordable is generally what the public always wants. It's an evergreen strategy. Granted, committing to an economy car identity would be kind of ironic in the face of Nissan's reputation for their high APR loans. But regardless of what it means to consumers, For Nissan, it would probably make the most sense to just cut their product line to the bone and focus on things they can make cheaply and sell at high volumes. And man, even saying that feels gross. It's just so cynical, man. It's just so bad. But even the stuff they're making could be improved if they simply did something about these awful CVTs, these terrible transmissions. And maybe that means pairing up with Honda, you know? In theory, Nissan does have the ability to turn things around, depending on the strategy they take. The right partnership, you know, maybe keeping costs low and pushing affordable cars that people might actually want. This is completely doable, you know? Except, well, do they actually know what people want? Okay, so Nissan has wanted to dive headfirst into EVs for a while now. Really push that division forward, right? You saw it with the Ariya, which was supposed to be a Tesla competitor, you know, maybe stack up against the Model Y, show that Nissan can still be competitive, that they have more to offer than just the Leaf. In fact, the Ariya is their best-selling EV, but the problem is that because it's assembled in Japan, it isn't eligible for the federal EV tax credit, whereas the Leaf does still qualify, albeit for only about half of the full $7,500. I think it's in the $3,500 ballpark. But to be fair, Nissan does have a clever workaround with this limitation on the Ariya, as Bloomberg reports that, quote, Nissan has gotten around this somewhat by taking advantage of credits available to leased vehicles. It's offering leases for as low as $199 a month, making the Ariya one of the better EV bargains around. End quote. So it makes sense that it's their best-selling EV, even as the Leaf has the federal tax credit advantage. But with every potential positive comes another negative, it seems. And even CEO Makoto Uchida admitted he didn't see this coming, but basically the EV market would see a decline in favor of hybrids. At the earnings conference last month, Uchida spoke candidly, saying, quote, It's an excuse, but up until this time last year, we weren't able to foresee the rapid rise in demand for hybrids. End quote. While the insufficient infrastructure has always been a problem for EVs, and costs are always going to be an issue unless you live in an area where owning an EV is viable, the executives at Nissan clearly didn't think there would be a decline. And in their defense, it's not as though EV sales have cratered across the board or anything like that, to where it'd be obvious that they should redirect their energy towards hybrids. But the failure to anticipate this resurgence for hybrids meant that Nissan missed a critical opportunity to fill an underserved gap in the market. Seiji Sugiura, a senior analyst at Tokai Tokyo Intelligence Laboratory, revealed to Reuters this month that analysts had been questioning Nissan's strategy for over a year. Quote, We'd ask, are you going to be okay in the US and China? And what about the lack of hybrids? And they'd say, yeah, we're fine. They completely misread the business environment and didn't do what they needed to. End quote. So what exactly does Nissan need to do? Well, considering the last 2 or 3 Roman reports have been investigations of sorts, trying to figure out why one company was declining, why another is making the choices it's making, and why another is suddenly succeeding, it feels weird to sit here and say, I don't know, actually. And to be fair, I never really knew. I was just giving my best hypothesis for why these moves were happening in the auto industry. But with Nissan, I really don't know what the answer is. In theory, the answer is make better cars that people actually want to buy. But the auto industry has more moving parts than a simple statement like that can account for. And I'm not sure this business has ever been a meritocracy anyway, so it's not even a guarantee that better cars will be the thing that turns this around. I mean, if it's a meritocracy, they probably would have died years ago. But for what it's worth, I don't think the answer is to swing for the enthusiast fences, because for as nice as a new Silvia might be, those are going to cost even more money to make and appeal to even fewer people. And on the chance we do get a new Silvia, you know it's going to be electric, which I feel might turn off some of the people who wanted it in the first place, whether out of pragmatic reasons or just preference, you know? With that said, while Nissan still needs to do their best to anticipate future trends, I don't think it's necessarily the worst idea in the world to throw enthusiasts a bone every now and then. Sure, the Stinger didn't stick around long term, but I feel like it did wonders for Kia's brand perception. But in the grand scheme of things, I get that you still need to make things that you think you can sell to the widest possible consumer base. We're in the automotive equivalent of the content churn, and what's wild is that the market doesn't even demand that the content be good. It just needs to fit into the need-shaped hole of a given consumer. It's not so much a calculus of want, but a calculus of need. People may say they want this, that, or the other thing, but do they actually need it? Because if it's not something they need, then the odds are they aren't going to buy it because they won't be able to justify it, either to themselves or to the people they know are going to call them out for it. Nissan had the intel that people wanted hybrids because they needed something fuel efficient but lower cost. However, Nissan didn't anticipate that it would be an ongoing need, so now they'll have a new hybrid coming out. But it reportedly won't get here until 2026. And who knows if the moment will have passed by then. Maybe by then the infrastructure for EVs will be farther along, or maybe automakers will be able to get battery range to a point where the average consumer doesn't worry about it anymore. Maybe by then Nissan will have found an anchor investor to shore them up for the next decade or more. And who knows, maybe it'll be Honda. But then you have to wonder, would Nissan, Renault, Mitsubishi, and Honda doing business together create an ideological clash? Are they just going to be stepping on each other's toes and preventing progress through warring portfolios? Or have times gotten so desperate that this kind of last resort approach needs to happen? I've seen the argument that Nissan is too big to fail. But how many automakers thought the same thing before being shuttered? Hell, are we even going to have Dodge 10 or 20 years from now? I don't know, and I get it. This is an awful lot of hand-wringing for Christmas morning. But I've been musing on Nissan's future for a long time now, and while I continue to see their cars in high volumes on the road, there's a hidden wound beneath that apparent popularity, right? Several wounds, really. The production costs, the profit margins, the desire to move forward that's hamstrung by the need to stick with what has traditionally worked. It's a crapshoot, as it ever has been, as it ever will be. Do I want to see Nissan fail? Of course not. Do I think they will? That's harder to say. Right now, I'd have to say no, even in the face of the evidence, because I think some equity giant will come in and snap up a majority stake if it ever came to nut-cutting time. But I think Nissan's road back is harder than it was in 1999, because the industry is changing in a way that's more difficult to predict, and harder to correct for. It's not as straightforward as mass layoffs and cost-cutting. There needs to be a much larger sea change, and a sturdy enough vessel to master the waters. But what do you think? Is Nissan really in trouble this time, or is this all overblown? What can they do to change? What would win you over? Let me know in the comments. I really don't tend to do much on Christmas morning, so I'd genuinely enjoy reading your thoughts. I'd like to think of these videos as a springboard for discussion, and the things a lot of you have to say are truly eye-opening to me, so I do enjoy reading them, even if I don't always respond. I am always reading. If you like the Roman Report and want to see it continue, Consider joining our Patreon. The link is in the description. Also, like, comment, subscribe, and tap that bell icon to make sure you're notified for new videos. And if you want, you can even share this video with someone else who you think might enjoy it. Last but not least, if you want more long-form content, check out some of the links in the description for some really time-consuming deep dives that I've done on various automotive topics. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting RCR. Without you, absolutely none of this is possible. Enjoy your holiday, and if you don't celebrate, enjoy your week. I mean, everybody enjoy your week. A good week is non-denominational. Until next time, take care, everyone.